Welcome back to Breathe Easy, a podcast by R. Davis Mechanical. I am Jason Sircone. Today I'm joined by Mr. Rob Davis of R. Davis Mechanical and Joe Kuklis of Lancaster Water. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Actually, I should welcome you to the show for the first time.
Good to be here. Good morning.
Glad to have you. So today we're going to talk about water, but before we dive into all of the ins and outs of what that pertains to, Joe, why don't you give us a little background about yourself, how you work with R. Davis Mechanical, and what you do in the world to make it a better place.
So, my name's Joe Kuklis. I'm with Lancaster Water Group. We are an 83-year-old, fourth-generation, family-owned manufacturer out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Obviously, we specialize in manufacturing water treatment equipment. I had the opportunity to meet with Rob just a little over 2 years ago. He had engaged in the opportunity of understanding that water quality is not great out there, and understood that a lot of the products that he touches on a daily basis for his customers are affected by water quality. So Rob reached out to me and invited me in to come in and train his team on water quality and what water products are good for their customer base.
Excellent. Well, Rob, I want you to bring up maybe the most important thing that you saw in regards to this subject matter and why you felt bringing Joe into the fold would help you guys out. So I'll let you take the floor in that respect.
Well, earlier this year, and prior to this year, not only do we do heating and air conditioning product services, I also own a lot of rental properties on my own. And the common things that go bad are appliances, water spigots, hose spigots, things of that nature. And I knew there was a problem, but I didn't really understand why we were replacing these things as often as we were. And just by chance ran into Joe, and when he spoke to me about water treatment, little bell went off, and we realized that a lot of our customers are probably dealing with the same issues. So that's what sparked the conversation. And then earlier this year, we hired a master plumber to come on, and he co-signed the whole thing. That this is something that's definitely necessary in our area.
Excellent. I know one of the big points you wanted to talk about, Joe, was the difference between well water and city water. So what journey does water take to get into your home? Maybe describe what it takes from both aspects, from well and city.
Yeah, absolutely. So stereotypically, people that live in more rural areas are on a well. That's where they're going to have the big well tank in their basement or wherever the water line is incoming to their house. And when you're on a well, you're essentially drilling a hole in the ground and dropping a pump down there and kind of sucking that water up out of the ground. So you are susceptible to whatever naturally earth occurring elements are there, or contaminants that are in that water and coming in through your house. So for many, many years, water treatment was kind of just generally associated with well customers because, they dealt with a little more sediment and maybe things like iron and stuff of that nature that comes out of the ground for that matter. But over the last 15 to 20 years, I think a lot of people have realized that city water actually also comes from a raw source, right? We can't manufacture water. So when you live in a municipality and you have a paid water bill, that water municipality is actually also pulling from a raw water source. But in order for that water to get to your house, a lot of times they'll pull from a lake, a river, a reservoir, something of that nature. They're going to bring that up to a pumping station, and then they're going to distribute that out to your house. And that could be 10 miles, 50 miles, 100 miles, 200 miles of pipe to get all the way to your kitchen tap. So that really opens up the door for a lot of different things to happen along the way. When you talk about municipality water, because they are pulling from that raw source, they are kind of susceptible to those same things that you would live on with a well. But one big key note that they do there with all municipalities in America is they actually disinfect the water. Most municipalities will use something they call chlorine, very stereotypical what you would see and use for your pool. That's going to kind of help take care of any potential bacteria or issues or things of that nature coming into the water. And then a lot of municipalities today are actually switching to a product we call chloramines. Chloramine is something that is actually chlorine also, but you're actually adding an ammonia compound to that as well. Municipalities use that. It's a little bit more effective at driving. The ammonia kind of helps pull that chlorine through the system. And maybe if you have 200 miles of pipe, it keeps that chlorine in the pipe to keep it disinfected all the way to getting to your house.
Okay. So I'm a total novice at this, so I have to ask that. I know that I've tasted the difference whenever I know I've gone to friends' house up from a small town up north of Pennsylvania. Some have well water. It just tastes like, ugh. Is that iron or is that something else? Or is that sediment? You tell me, you're the expert here.
Yeah, so it's a great question. First of all, taste is subjective, right?
Yeah, sure. That's a good point.
What we always like to say is people that grew up on well water don't trust city water, and people that grew up on city water don't trust well water, right? Because if you grew up in that home your whole life and you're used to kind of consuming that water and you lived on a well, maybe there's minerals in that water, maybe there's other things, a little bit of iron, things of that nature that you just get used to, right? And that becomes your subjective taste. Mm-hmm. One thing on municipality water is when they do chlorinate, kind of a byproduct of chlorination is it oxidizes a lot of things out of the water. So stereotypically, the iron and things of that nature kind of go away. However, I don't know about you, but I don't know if you've ever drinking any chlorine before or kind of swallowed some water in the pool, but it does not taste great. Right?
Not so much, no.
So when you grow up on city water, a lot of people get used to that chlorine taste or chlorine smell, right? Don't necessarily always consume it all the time, but when you shower in it, bathe in it, wash your hands in it, wash your dishes in it, you just kind of get used to that chlorine taste and that chlorine smell. Yeah. Probably one of the biggest things that we educate on today is chlorine really is a necessary evil, right? We want that in our water because when I'm pulling that from a raw water source and running that through potentially hundreds of miles of pipe, things can happen along the way, right? There could be bacteria in that raw water. There could be different things. There could be a busted pipe, something of that nature. So we want that kind of protection. What Rob and his team stereotypically kind of coach their homeowners on is we really treat chlorine or kind of talk to them about chlorine more like a banana peel, right? And I say things like that and people kind of look at you side eyes, almost like you looking at me today. But really what that is, if I go to the store today and I'm going to buy some produce and I want to pick up a banana, right? And I take that home and I'm going to eat that banana. I take that peel off and I discard that, right? I get rid of it. So that banana peel is there to protect that fruit, to get it to my house, right? So when it's on a farm and there might be bugs or birds and dust and mites and all those different things, and then it gets put on a truck and it goes to a grocery store and sits in distribution and goes out on the floor and some little kid's picking his nose and walking by and, all those things, that banana peel is there to protect it all the way to get to my house. As a homeowner, I want to think of chlorine as that same exact conversation, right? When that raw water source is there, i.e. the banana on the farm, right? Potential things can happen. Mm-hmm. So the municipality is going to disinfect that to protect you from any of those bacteria or potential harmful things. And that chlorine is going to stay with my water all the way to my house, just like the banana traveled to my house picking up at the grocery store. When I get it to my house, I kind of want it out, right? We talked about it being a necessary evil. What a lot of people don't realize is chlorine is actually, you can absorb that about 6 times faster through your skin than even if you were to kind of drink a shot of chlorine.
No kidding.
So a lot of people think of their water and think of it from a drinking standpoint, right? Some of the bigger concerns are actually skin absorption through there. Hot shower is a perfect example. It's probably the number one thing that most people do when they get home from a hard day of work is hop in and take a nice hot shower, especially on a cold day. Out there, when you heat chlorine up, kind of take the liquid form out of it away and you're kind of left with that vapor in there. So essentially, when you're taking a nice hot shower and you've got all those pores open on your skin starts to kind of super absorb all that chlorine into the water or into your skin, to do that. So that's probably the number one thing that people don't think about when they think of water quality, right? I would tell you that a lot of people out there, a lot of homeowners out there don't understand that the water in the back of their toilet tank is the same exact water that they bathe in, that they shower in, that they wash their dishes in, right? Sometimes you just associate that water a little bit differently out there when you're looking at that. So the second kind of point to that is, again, we need that chlorine there at the raw source, right? Potentially protect us from that bacteria, but necessary evil. When that chlorine does its job and potentially kills that bacteria in the water, that byproduct still in the water, right? There's a lot of kind of scientific funny names that you can kind of look up for what those byproducts of that contaminant can be. But probably one of the biggest things out there is an acronym called TTHM, which stands for total trihalomethanes. That is an EPA measured primary contaminant. Primary contaminant meaning it's harmful to your health at some level. And every municipality in America is required by law to measure and report on their levels of what that byproduct is in the water to do that. So when we look at water filtration systems like what R. Davis puts in for you, one of their most popular systems is a City Soft, specifically designed for city water. Kind of has two parts to the system. Part A, going to take care of some of the extra minerals and things like that might be in the water that help protect a lot of the systems, appliances, fixtures, things of that nature within your home, basically anything that water touches. The second part of that is a little bit more on the wellness side of the business, where we have a carbon filtration system up top, and that carbon filtration system is specifically designed to take care of those chlorines and those byproducts that are in the water to pull them out. When we get them to your house, they've done their job. They've protected us against those other bacteria and things that could be there. Now we want to get them out so we can enjoy our water throughout the rest of our house.
And Rob, I want to bring you into this as well. So when you guys are out in the field and you hear people asking questions about this, what are you typically hearing, or what are you looking for that would make you want to bring in some of these systems that Joe's talking about to make people start having more awareness and ultimately get better water sourced into their homes?
A lot of times it's smell. People say, hey, my water smells funny. Or if they've just moved to this area from another area, it's taste. You guys have already touched on taste. And a lot of times it's our own observations. If we're, in a basement swapping out a hot water heater or a furnace or something, you're looking at their laundry tub and you see the big buildup on it, and it strikes up a conversation. Then a lot of times people will talk about how itchy their skin is. And that City Soft system that Joe was talking about also is a water softener. So a lot of different things prompt a conversation about the water treatment systems.
Joe, how about yourself? When you're talking directly with customers, are they giving you any indication that would make you know immediately what needs to be done, or do you have to get in there and figure things out with a lot of, we don't call it extra legwork, but diving in real deep? Yeah,
sure. So when you talk about kind of what's in the water, that's really a loaded question, right? Because there could be anything in the water. And there's a lot of people out there that just think, hey, I pay for water, it's city water, it's municipal water, like it's got to be clean, right? There is a ton of awesome resources out there that the common public can kind of hop on. All of this is public information, right? Any municipality that provides water is required to test that water and then provide that report on that water and then publish that at least on an annual basis. There's also additional nonprofit organizations, things of that nature, that run websites that you can get on and kind of pop your zip code in there and kind of check out what's going on in the water to do that. But I would tell you for many, many years at Lancaster Water Group, we have predominantly only worked with the professional trade mechanical out there, people like Rob and his company. So obviously as a trade mechanical person, they touch all kinds of appliances, right? Mm-hmm. Fixtures, as Rob mentioned with his rental properties, appliances, fixtures, all those things, those just break for years, right? And when you go out to do it, so many mechanical contractors will look at that. And what I always like to say is they fix the what instead of the why. So if you called me to your house today or called Rob to your house today and you said, hey, my faucet's broken, right? And that company comes in and they just fix that faucet. Well, something broke that faucet. Of course, you can have inferior products and different things of that nature, whatever it may be. But almost every single time, if that appliance has water running through it, the water's what broke it, right? So that's where we really kind of, R. Davis has really taken a focus on fixing the why as opposed to just fixing the what, right? We still have to change the what for them or fix the what or whatever the problem was happening at the house. But the why is, hey, why is this thing breaking down? Why have I changed out my water heater 3 times in 10 years? Why have I continued to change these faucets out or these cartridges out or the flappers on my toilets or anything of that nature? All of that is affected by water quality.
And I think, I don't want to be presumptuous, but thinking ahead, getting in there and fixing that why, as you say, I think that would lead to more long-term stability out of your equipment, out of your appliances.
Correct.
So start with why. I know it's a common saying in the marketing world. I love hearing that getting in there and actually treating the problem at its source and figuring out the main reason why it happened versus just putting a Band-Aid on it obviously shows the care that you have for your customers and wanting them to get more out of the appliances that you install.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead, Rob. So we don't typically just look and say, oh, this got to be bad water. We do test the water. We take a sample, we mail it out to Lancaster, they test it, they email me back a report on what the level of hardness is, amongst other things. and then they suggest a system for each specific house. So it's not like we're guessing and just selling a random system to hey, it's not a one size fits all type thing.
Yeah.
So that's a great point, Rob. And that's one of the things that I think Rob was intrigued by when we first met a couple of years ago. Was a lot of companies kind of come out and just claim a one size fits all, or, hey, this system's going to do everything for you type of thing. That's never the case, right? That's absolutely never the case. Rob and his team have invested into actual additional testing. They partner with Lancaster Water Group. They want to make sure when they walk into that home that we are providing the right solution for that home. Yeah, when you're on municipality water, things can get a little bit more cookie cutter and a little bit more simplistic than when you're on that well system and you have kind of maybe all these other different earth contaminants out there that you have to deal with. But Rob and his team still take that individual time to customize and design that system, spend the time talking to Lancaster, spend the time talking to Lancaster's lab. A lot of times Rob will just call me and say, hey, we ran into this at this house. What do you think about this type of system in this situation? These are the particular problems we're running in. So they're just investing in making sure that they have the right solution for their customer every time.
Excellent. So, Joe, soft water versus hard water. Does it matter? Tell us what that means and tell us how you guys evaluate that type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So stereotypically in the industry, hard water is created from actual minerals in the water, right? So when we talk about the well application where we potentially had iron and different things of that nature in the water, hardness is made up of two ions. It's calcium and magnesium, right? If you were to walk into anybody today on the street or walk outside today and ask them about calcium or magnesium, they probably would check that box that that's a good thing for me, right? And absolutely, your body needs calcium and magnesium on a regular basis to kind of function well and do all those types of things. The downside to that is that's a naturally earth occurring thing. Calcium and magnesium in the water wreaks havoc on everything in your house, right? So anything that has water running through it, that calcium and that magnesium that starts out dissolved in the water, so you can't necessarily see it right away. And then as soon as it has the opportunity to hit some oxygen, it'll calcify and build up, right? So a lot of people have seen the shower doors with all this, the build up on them, the faucets with the white ring around them, build up in their toilets, build up in their fixtures, open up the dishwasher, and the dishes are all spotty and flaky and all that type of stuff. So again, certainly things that are good for our bodies every day, right? What a big misnomer out there in the industry is, yes, calcium, magnesium needed for your body. We don't get our calcium and magnesium on a daily basis from our drinking water, right? Or our consumption water at our home or showering in it or anything in that nature. So even though it's stuff that's good for our body, it is way, way more harmful for our fixtures, our appliances, and our plumbing systems in our home. So we kind of want to get that out of the house, much like we had the conversation on chlorine, right? Yeah. So when we package calcium and magnesium together, that is known as hardness or the hard water, right? That's where that comes from. Hard water is the most common thing that we'll talk about in water treatment. The reason why is when I walk onto a well, kind of susceptible to everything, which includes hardness, includes iron, includes potential pH issues or manganese and all kinds of things we can find from the earth, right? Because the city water does that thing about chlorination, more so to protect the bacteria, but also to kind of oxidize some of that other stuff out of the water. But one thing that it does not do when they chlorinate the water is take the hardness out. So whether we're on city or well water, hardness is always a conversation, right? So the number one reason, as I said, for kind of taking that out of the water is really to give protection to our appliances, give extra life to everything in the home. There's actually data, science data out there that shows and proves that removing the hardness from the water can actually help your efficiency, whether you're talking about like a gas water heater, a dishwasher. I mean, heck, we're even hooking dryers up to water nowadays, right? And there's steam dryers and things of that nature. So there's all kinds of data to help support that, right? When we physically remove that hardness from the water, now we call it soft water, right? So very stereotypically in the industry, you hear the word softener, and that is a water softener system, and that is exactly what we're doing. When we have a softener, we are going to physically remove those hardness ions, calcium and magnesium, from the water. In a very simplified format, what happens is that tank that you put downstairs at your basement or wherever your water inlet is at, that's going to store and keep and hold all of those hardness ions in there. We use some diagnostics and some fancy science and all that kind of stuff on our control head. and we tell that system at the most efficient point possible when it's too full of hardness, right? Okay. Then we go ahead and we regenerate that, right? That's why most softeners out there actually have a salt tank sitting right next to them. A lot of people kind of think that we're just kind of constantly introducing that salt into the water. Not true at all. The only time we're using that salt tank is actually to give that softener a car wash, right? Mm-hmm. Every so often, depending on the water usage in your home and how much hardness you have in the water, you'll go ahead and use that salt tank and that salt water to wash it all off. But that water actually goes out to drain then. We kind of get rid of all that murky and yucky water that we want out, and we send that out to drain so it protects the rest of our house and protects that from appliances, fixtures, and plumbing systems.
So I'm in hearing all that, I'm assuming, or I'm guessing, again, I'm being presumptuous, but saying that the right appliances matter and the right system is going to matter for all of the things that you just explained. So tell us about the importance of brand selection. Tell us about really how does a homeowner make that right decision on the system that they choose?
Hold on real quick before you go into that, about, when Joe and I first spoke about it, when I first met my wife, I showered at her parents' house after an event, and they had a water softener, and I didn't like it. I thought it felt slimy, and Joe had to explain to me why it was slimy, and I think that would be something, because that's when you talk to people about it, that's always their big thing. I can't get the soap off and this and that.
Yeah.
But you and I spoke about the hard water also like makes your skin more flaky. So it's more than just the appliances. It's better for you as a person too, even your laundry.
Yeah.
But it was mainly the whole slimy thing was, he said, once you switch to that soft water, you need less product. So it will take long. If you're using, if you're using a big old of shampoo, you might want to reduce that, because you don't need it anymore.
Okay. Yeah, great point, Rob. When we have talked about previously here, the subjective taste and things of that nature, and when you grow up on a well. So same thing if you're going to consider putting softener in your house. If you've lived in that home and you have a moderate amount of hardness in there that's been failing appliances and scaling up and building up, and then you go to a drastic switchover just like that, of taking all of that out of the water, what a lot of people don't realize is softening actually does have a lot of wellness benefits too. So if you think of that hard water, that scale buildup that you might see built around the edge of your faucet, within your shower door, things of that nature, same thing can happen on your skin, right? So if I hop in the shower, I hop out of the shower and I dry off and you have some residual water in there, that water has that hardness in there, that will dry up and kind of scale up and build up on your skin. So as I take that away, and I go from that drastic change of showering that way for 10 or 15 years and then going to removing that from the water, some of that is your natural skin oils that you'll feel when you get out of the shower, right? And then we already talked about the ability for that removing that hardness to be more effective with that soap. So yeah, a lot of case scenarios, if you were using a whole palm full of conditioner in your hand, that new look can be something the size of a dime or something of that nature. So nobody's kids going to college or anything by putting a softener in, but there is an opportunity for savings kind of everywhere in the home that you're potentially using water for that to be more effective for you. Using less shampoos, using less soaps, all of those things across the board when you put a softener in.
Excellent. Rob, any last thoughts on that before we move on to what will be, our second to last question?
On the whole skin feel thing?
Well, you were the one that brought it up. So,
yeah. I mean, he pretty much covered it. And it's like I said, I just remember when I brought that topic up to him, because I was like, water softeners.
Yeah.
I used that once, just wasn't for me. But now that I understood it more, it made more sense. And, it's just something like anything else you change. You got to get used to it.
Yeah. So we'll randomly get that call, from some homeowners at the factory or whatever that give us that call. But what you very stereotypically find is when somebody's used to a softener, they don't want to change, right? And like I know myself, I use everything in my home, and then I go stay at a hotel or something of that nature that doesn't have it. And I'm like, I could feel the scaleness and the buildup and the stickiness of the water that I'm not used to having there for sure. So even though people sometimes that haven't had it, when they first get it, they kind of have that adjustment period to it. Once they get used to it, they don't want to change from it. We have had people call us at the factory and move from one state to another state and say, hey, I want to take my softener with me, right? Because I love it so much. I want to have it at the new home. Of course, that's a situation where we say, hey, we really got to look at the new water, right, to make sure and understand that that's still the right product for you to do that. But yeah, once people get used to it, they don't want to change from it at all.
That's totally understandable. I get that. And I know I've felt that too. Just when you come out of your comfort zone with what you're used to and then you experience it just feels that I can totally attest to that slimy feeling. I know I've had that before when I've stayed at a couple different hotels. Don't need to talk about which ones those were, but yeah. So tell us the truth about bottled water.
Yeah. So, man, this is a rabbit hole without a doubt.
Now.
Yeah.
I remember I worked for Coca-Cola for 10 years.
Yeah, you could certainly really go down a large area of research on this and kind of never stop. But the sheer nature of it is that, we had a big push, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago to kind of move everything in the plastics and things from the recyclables. But there's a lot of data out there and studies to show and prove that when you take something in a plastic bottle and you potentially change the temperatures of it. So think of I'll pick on Rob and his history here, but you think of a bottling plant somewhere, right? Stereotypically, that plant might not be air conditioned, whatever it may be, but we fill up a whole bunch of water, even if that water is kind of relatively clean and filtered very well and all those types of things. And we fill up all these plastic bottles. We wrap 24 of them in a plastic case. Then we put 50 of those on a skid and we shrink wrap those and we ship them to a big box store or a grocery store or whatever. And, they're on the back of a truck in the middle of the summer and then they're on an air conditioned floor. And we just kind of drastically changed the temperature of those plastic bottles out there. It is a proven science fact that those plastic bottles can leach some of the original chemicals used in manufacturing that plastic bottle in there. So a big kind of popular, sexy name out there today is microplastics, right? That everybody talks about. So that's essentially what it is. We use plastic for everything. It's not just bottled water, right? You can think of anything, condiments, ketchup, mustard, all that type of stuff. And as you kind of drastically change the temperature up and down with that product, you're going to leach microplastics into whatever that product is. So you can walk into your standard convenience store or grocery store and see hundreds of different brands of bottles of water on the factory, and they all kind of make different claims and where they come from, and some come from mountains and all these different types of things. But the bottom line is when we are storing that in that plastic bottle, we essentially create the opportunity for microplastics to enter that bottle, right? My favorite thing to talk about, hey, listen, I travel a lot. I'm on the road. A lot of times I need a bottle of water, right? I'm not telling everybody to go stop buying bottled water today. But when you do products like our Davis offers, I take a product like the City Soft, which is one of their main products for their city water customers. You are giving them, in this case, better than bottled water quality at their kitchen tap, at their bathroom tap, right? I carry one of those kind of 32-ounce stainless steel mugs, and when I leave my house in the morning, I fill it up in my kitchen sink. I'm actually a weird guy that doesn't like cold water, right? So I like kind of room temperature water, and I just fill that up in my kitchen sink and kind of keep that in my mug and drink from that all day long. And that's the type of things that a lot of people don't realize. When you get into bottled water, you start talking about that. Doing something like putting a water filtration system in your house now gives you better than bottled water quality, because we're not also dealing with those microplastics at that point in time, right from your kitchen tap every day. So again, no kid is going to college. Nobody's retiring because they put a water filtration system in. But as you really look at the whole spectrum, if you're running to the big box store and for your family buying 2, 3, 4 cases of water a month right now, that expense can go away, right? Everybody kind of gets their mug, their cup, and they can fill up from their own home. My favorite thing about it is, sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night and have a dry throat or whatever, and I can walk over to my bathroom sink and, fill up a cup of water at my bathroom sink and right out of my bedroom and just, know I have a good clean cup of water coming from there.
It's all good information to know, because I think we're such a society of convenience, and it just seems so much easier to go to the store and buy a case of water, and then you have that bottle right there and it's easy to grab and go. But knowing all of this, I think changes my mind. I know I've gotten away from bottled water a long time ago. I'm not 100% sure if the water that's coming out of my tap is the cleanest or best, but it tastes good.
Hey, I know somebody that might be able to.
And I've heard about this guy. Yeah, I've heard about this guy too. But overall, just that knowledge, I think, is something that just it's not out there a lot. I mean, I bet if you dig deep, like you said, there's a lot of rabbit holes on this that you could go down. But
sure.
I think that's incredibly important to keep in mind for all of our homeowners listening to this.
Yep. Yeah. And just in the whole topic of water treatment and filtration, any topic we get into, we're talking chemicals, we're talking contaminants, we're talking municipality water, well water. I mean, you can go down a rabbit hole on anything, right? So
Sure.
that's why it's important to kind of have, that kind of trusted partner with a trusted brand. We at Lancaster deal with it a lot, right? There's a lot of companies, unfortunately, in our industry that kind of make a lot of bold claims, right?
Mm.
One of the things that we were going to talk about today was kind of the importance of product quality and kind of certifications and things of that nature, right? So a lot of companies out there can buy pieces and components and can start a Facebook page and start an Instagram page and just kind of pop something out there. What you see a lot of times in the industry is people might buy a component from some alternative manufacturer that makes just that component, right? And that manufacturer might individually certify their components that they're shipping out to their customer base. But then when that company is now putting that together with other products to create a water treatment system, it is very important to know and understand that that complete water treatment system has actually been certified to do and say what it's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we commonly arm our customer base with and kind of let them know is just seems to be in the industry that every time you have a company telling you everything that their piece of water treatment equipment doesn't do, right? You really got to step back and say, okay, what is this thing actually doing for me right now? So it's important to know and understand, hey, is this company have some credibility, right? That's why Rob was confident in Lancaster Water Group. They're not around for 83 years on accident, right? They're not a fourth generation company on accident. They spend a lot of time with certifications, testing, engineering, things of that nature to make sure that the products that we're putting out for them to use for their customers are satisfactory and up to code, up to standards, things of that nature. And most importantly, the equipment's going to do what we actually say it's going to do, right?
Yeah. Well, we've learned a lot today. I know this educated the hell out of me. So I want to give you guys the floor as we close this episode down to let our listeners know. And if they're homeowners, they're listening to this show, they're watching these videos, they're hearing about this information, maybe for the first time, maybe hearing more about it for the first time. What is the next step they should take to reach out to you guys in regards to what they should know? What questions should they be asking? Ultimately, what's going to put them in the best position to better understand the water that's being sourced in their house and how they can get the best quality going forward?
Well, the easiest thing is, you call us, we come out, we do a water sample, we send it off. We send it off to these folks. Their lab takes a look at what you have, what the best solution for your house is. And then at that point, we can present that solution to you. I mean, it's a pretty simple and easy process. It's, other than answering questions and presenting information, it takes us 2 minutes to take a water test and mail it out. And we usually have the results back within 3 or 4 days.
Okay.
They're spending time having myself and some of our team come out here, train their technicians on the equipment, right? And train them what to look for, train what to talk about in the home. All those types of things are important. And then just for the consumer, like Lancaster's tagline, right, is water equals life. And that's as simplified as you can get. When you look at the earth and a human body and all that, there's an overwhelming majority of that is made up by water, right? And it's an incredibly important in what we do every day. So why not have that at the most optimal performance for your home, for yourself, for your life, for your body, for your family, for your kids, for your appliances, for your fixtures, for your plumbing system, everything across the board just creates a great opportunity to have clean water.
Excellent. Well, Joe, Rob, I want to thank you both for bringing your insight to the show today. Obviously, a wealth of knowledge here and a lot for our listeners to learn and unpack. I'll put links to both the R. Davis site, the Lancaster Water website in the show notes. That way, our audience can connect and learn more and ultimately reach out to get that water sample done, learn more about what you guys can do and ultimately how better water can be sourced into the home. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right, everybody, thanks for taking in this episode of Breathe Easy, and we will see you on the next one.